Safeway combats theft with a separate shopping section for high theft items at certain locations. So, got a store, big store. It used to have just a small segment of like one aisle would have some random stuff locked up, whatever was being stolen the most of that stuff. And then it became the full aisle. Now it became 2 aisles. Now you got a whole damn big section of area so that they can put in all the stuff that's being stolen on the regular that's expensive. How long until it's the whole store? Well, we're going to find out in this podcast how Plaid Pantry is handling that whole thing with the whole store. Let's jump on in. When you get a chance, head on over to reasonabletv.com. We've got private content on there. That's our subscriber service. That's where you're going to find the really choice, juicy stuff like this one. Armed thieves follow people home from the bank and violently rob them. That is known as bank jugging. Yeah, that's an actual thing. Check it out, reasonabletv.com. Back to your regularly scheduled program. Blatant unchecked shoplifting is a big problem in Portland. Now some stores are changing the way they operate to curb it. Let's get a little visual here.
Our Tim Gordon joins us from the Safeway in downtown Portland. And Tim, shoppers can see some of these new efforts at that store.
Yeah, that's right. And although Safeway is not really talking specifics about that, we can clearly see that they and other stores are adding separate shopping and checkout areas within the stores farther away from the front doors.
The shoplifting epidemic in Portland is happening in plain sight. KGW has documented people stealing armloads of products that security experts like Scott Castleman say are resold on the black market.
In my career of loss prevention, I've never seen anything to the degree that we have today, with the brazenness of the shoplifters going in, knowing that they won't get caught, so they don't even try to conceal anything anymore.
If you walk into the Safeway store at Southwest 10th and Jefferson, you can see what they are now doing to try and stop it, adding a dedicated, secured area within the store for what appears to be the most lifted items. You have to pay there before you can ever get close to the exit doors. Maybe that gives security officers a better chance to stop the theft. Safeway is not talking about their strategy here or at the Safeway store in the Pearl, the 2 stores we found with the new, more secure areas. Safeway sent us a one-line response reading, like other local businesses, we are working on ways to curtail escalating theft to ensure the safety of our employees and foster a welcoming environment for our loyal customers. Castleman has decades of experience in security and loss prevention. He is not convinced this type of strategy will make much difference, especially if staff and security are not allowed to stop and detain people, effectively making citizens' arrests, as Oregon law allows.
That's a huge point, is the fact that it doesn't matter how much you lock up your stuff, people are going to steal whatever they can. So unless you lock up the whole store, or you allow guys with AR-15s to chase people out and arrest them out on the street, I mean, we're approaching that, right? I mean, I kind of joke, but then again, what's it going to take? What is it going to take to quell what we've got going on?
I'm telling you, the more these people start getting felony convictions, the more they're going to stop shoplifting. Because again, those involved in the criminal element talk to other people, and they know who's soft on crime and who's hard on crime.
Near the Jefferson Street Safeway is a Plaid Pantry. This convenience store is one of a half dozen with security concerns that could end up closing them. The local convenience store chain is trying to avoid that. So in the past year, management has installed walk-up windows like at a bank. Customers are not allowed in the stores at night.
It's not efficient. It's not good customer service, but it's just the only way in certain stores that we can control that situation.
Plaid Pantry's Jonathan Polonsky says there's not room in the profit margin for security guards, and employee safety always comes first.
We really preach hard about de-escalation. So it's pretty demoralizing when somebody literally walks in with a shopping bag, waves at the associate, says hi, goes through the store, loads up their bag, walks out the door and says, see you tomorrow. And they're back the next day.
Back at the bigger grocery stores like the Gateway Fred Meyer, we are used to seeing products locked behind plexiglass, where paying customers have to wait for assistance to get to them. This and the new separate shopping areas we are seeing now at Safeway are the inconvenient reality. Castleman says apprehension, police response, and prosecution is what's worked in the past.
I worked at that 10th and Jefferson Safeway. I worked there in 1992 or 1993. We got hundreds of shoplifters out of there, hundreds. But very few would ever come back.
For Polonsky, it's safety first, but he agrees there needs to be more consequences to turn the tide on shoplifting.
We have a great relationship with law enforcement, and I know they're pressed just like everybody right now. But we've got to do more to hold people accountable.
And back here live, showing you an incident down there at the corner of the Safeway with Portland Police and ambulance on the scene right now. I did reach out to Portland Police and the DA's office. PPB did get back to me saying they understand the frustration. Yes, they are short-staffed and focused on violent crimes, gun violence, homicides, but they do get to property crimes as often as they can. They will investigate them, and they will work with the DA as much as possible to prosecute as well. Ashley, back to you.
All right, Tim, thank you.
So we know these folks are just walking out with enormous carts of stuff, right? I mean, we can see it in the data. We can see it in the losses. Until you turn that tide, until you make some of this criminal activity criminal again, because we've taken so much of what used to be a felony and made it a misdemeanor, that why wouldn't they push a shopping cart out with, $1,000 worth of stuff or whatever? Why wouldn't they do that? And that's what they're consistently doing. So a couple of the things from that video is it's interesting that Safeway is like, we're just not pretty much going to discuss that. We're just, we're working on it. We're working on it. They don't want to talk about it because that means that they're having to do PR for their store, which is taking a massive hit. It's not good for Safeway. So instead, they're just going to, kind of like QFC did in Seattle, where they locked up all the ice cream, the expensive ice cream at one point. I'm not sure if that's still a thing and you're in Seattle. This is at the QFCs that didn't close because of shoplifting and safety issues. Had a handful of those on top of Starbucks closing some stores in Seattle because of safety issues. One of the things that the Plaid Pantry, the bank teller window, remember when you used to go to the bank and you do a deposit? You had to actually go into the bank and do your deposit. We didn't have the electronic deposit. You'd go and you'd put your check and your deposit slip in that little chute thing, and whoosh, it would go up and magically it would get to the bank person. Well, Plaid Pantry had, one of those, literally like a bank teller's thing where you can open it and close it. So then I imagine you walk up there and go, I'd like a pack of Marlboro Light menthols and a 6-pack of Bud Light. What else are you getting at Plaid Pantry where you can't go in there and buy stuff? You're going there for that kind of stuff. It's probably later. They said that, they're enacting this kind of loss prevention after dark. So you can't even go inside of the store. I have not seen that, but I was at Kohl's this past weekend. My girlfriend had she had an Amazon return that was in the Kohl's store. I have no idea what that was all about, but I walked up. I'm on my phone doing something, probably reading the news, reading an important story. So I'm reading the news. And I'm walking up to the doors and I'm like, what's the deal? The automatic door thing isn't going on. And then I look up and it goes, entrance closed. Please go that way. And I looked that way, and Kohl's is a big damn store. So it was like, half a block of having to walk. And I know, okay, I got to walk all the way that way. And then I probably got to do at least that to get to the main entrance. What they had done is they, closed off a side entrance because so much of their stuff was just walking out there. This is happening because we've taken what used to be criminal felony charges, and we've just made it, it's okay. You guys can do that. It's all right. Because we thought somehow that it was unfair that, criminals be charged with felonies on stuff like shoplifting. It's going to take reworking that whole thing to kind of get back to the point where we're not going to have to do this. where we do the bank teller window, which is, okay, yeah, you slide me the cash, I'll slide you the beer and the smokes. How about that? We do it simultaneously though, right? I mean, just crazy stuff, right? The other major issue that was discussed in the video that we just saw was until you give somebody the ability to chase after these guys, it's just going to keep on going. You need to drop some felony charges on these folks. You need to lock them up. You need to give law enforcement the ability to lock these folks up. We've just gone far too far down this road of, it's okay. I mean, we know you guys will probably show up for court. And when you do, we're going to sentence you for a, tiny little misdemeanor. Well, basically just give you a ticket for all the stuff you've stolen. I saw a video the other day of a woman that had an entire shopping cart. I mean, a big jumbo shopping cart, not one of the flatbeds, but one of the big red ones. I don't know what store it was. Maybe it was like Target or something. It was filled with meat, and she's just taking huge piece of meat after huge piece of packaged meat and throwing it in the back of the trunk of her car. You got to give somebody a felony conviction for that. I'm sorry. That's like $1,300 worth of meat, I think is what it was. Maybe it's a couple of grand worth of meat. I can't remember the exact number, but it's like, you got to stop people from doing that. You got to stop people. And the only thing that they're going to listen to is being thrown in jail. That's all you got. A fine? They're not going to pay the fine. They don't care. Misdemeanor? Who cares? Give them a felony conviction, make them spend some time, cool their jets so they're not out doing this. But instead, we've given them the keys to the castle and allowed them to just basically, all right, we're not going to chase you. We're not going to prosecute you, even if we do catch you. And you're not going to have to do any time. So what would be the reason that they would stop doing this activity? Yeah, that's where I kind of come up with, well, you're going to have to drop the hammer on them. Going to have to drop the hammer on them. Until you start doing that, expect much of the same. Like I talked about in another recent video, people always want to say, hey, Sean, you point out a lot of the problems, but you don't provide any solutions. And like I said in the other video, I provide solutions all the time. It's just none of them are ever going to get enacted given the political makeup and the political, the folks living and casting the votes in the cities that I'm talking about. You're just not going to see that. It's not going to happen. How many political recall elections, the anti-election, do we have to have where you've got clearly, like Newsom down in California, clearly he's come up with policy that is not helping California's residents. And yet he beats that recall. So, the said patrons of stores in California, you get what you pay for. Seattle, you get what you pay for. Portland, you get what you pay for. I mean, this is kind of inherent in the way the system goes. This is the way the game is played, right? It's not efficient. It's not good customer service, but it's just the only way in certain stores that we can take control of that, said Plaid Pantry president and CEO Jonathan Polonsky. He brought up a really good point that they can't afford, the Plaid Pantry stores cannot afford the security. Security is super expensive. They don't have a profit margin to make that go. So they want to stay in business because they've got so much money tied up in these individual little stores. You might not think so, but all the marketing and all the relationships with clients over the years, the walk-in relationships, they've developed all that. To give that up and start another store at another location, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So that's why they're fighting so hard to keep these stores open. And if their only option is to do the bank teller window, and that's going to deter a lot of people, because what does that say? It's kind of like the homeless encampment out in front of the church that I just podcasted on. Greek Orthodox Church in Seattle is having a hard time getting its parishioners to come to church because they got a big encampment out in front that scares people away. When you go up to a mini mart, when you go up to a Plaid Pantry and you see that it's all closed up, except you got this little window deal that you can do, does that make you think this is really secure? This is a really secure area. I'm going to give my business to this mini mart. No, it does not say that, does it? It doesn't. It says the opposite. It says, watch out, watch your back. You don't know what's coming at you. We've had a lot of stuff stolen. Therefore, we've resorted to this. You get a bank teller window if you want to get your beer and smokes. It's what you get, right? So we have a great relationship with law enforcement. I know everybody's pressed right now, but we've got to do more to hold people accountable. Absolutely. But you're not going to see that for a while. You're not going to see that for a while because this is going to take changing of the laws that are in place, right? It's going to take changing of attitude by said people in these communities. It's going to take a long time for those folks to connect the dots. It's going to take a bunch of stores closing down, a bunch of mini marts closing down, which we're starting to see. But by the time that happens, an area is already kind of too far gone for that to really make much of a difference. And I'd hate to see that happen in Portland. I watched video from Nick Johnson the other day, and he was covering Oakland. And it was not just block after block. It was mile after mile of closed storefronts, of shanty towns, of tents, of broken down RVs, miles and miles and miles of it. Like, too far gone, too far gone. But that is the process that we are watching happen. We're watching Safeway go, okay, we're going to create kind of this big section here where we're going to have somebody that's going to be in control of selling the goods from this area. And it's nowhere near the front or exit door. So we're going to control it here. All right. But then when that doesn't work, then they end up shutting the store down, right? They're going through all these things of, okay, we're going to do armed security guards. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. After a while, they're like, yeah, this isn't working. This isn't worth it. And they just shut down. And that's how you end up with miles and miles of this, kind of thing going on where you don't have any viable businesses at all. You might have one every now and then. You want to be that one business just trying to make it, trying to make a go of it? Probably not. But this is literally the process that Portland is seeing, that LA is seeing, that San Francisco is seeing. And these are the things that are having to do, that individual stores are having to do. They're having to do the bank window. They're having to create a section within the big store that's more regulated, that has more security. That, no, you can't have that here. And from what I saw, it was kind of the booze section, right? Go and steal a bottle of booze. So even the whole, theft thing where you've got a security tag on that. So the security alarm goes off as you walk out of the store. All right. So it went off. Nobody's going to chase after them. So who cares? So then they take it a step further back and go, okay, we're going to create this big section here and we'll just have to see how that works out. I know other stores have already tried this. Maybe this will work in Portland. I don't know. Maybe it won't. Either which way, we'll keep covering it for you right here on News for Reasonable People. All right, that's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.